Hello everyone and welcome to today's WorkSafe Tasmania month webinar, Supporting Tasmanian Carers Within the Workplace. I'm Stephanie from WorkSafe Tasmania. WorkSafe Tasmania month is an initiative funded by the WorkCover Tasmania board. Before we start, please take a moment to read the following slide about information received today. To interact with today's presentation, please use the control panel to type and submit your questions for today's presenter. Questions will be collected and responded to at the end of the webinar. Today's presentation is also being recorded and will be made available on WorkSafe Tasmania's YouTube page. It is now my pleasure to introduce your presenter from Carers Tasmania, Julie Ryan. Julie is the Executive Policy Officer for Carers Tasmania, the peak body representing carers across Tasmania. Its aim is to share the voice of carers to governments and services about things that can make a positive difference to their life and the people they provide care for. Julie has been with Carers Tasmania since 2015. She holds a Bachelor of Sciences in Psychology and is currently undertaking a graduate certificate in health promotion. Julie has a strong background in community services and mental health and a passion for social justice, removing stigma and influencing positive social change. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Stephanie, for that warm welcome. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's jumped on board this afternoon to listen. I really appreciate you being here. I'd also like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands and waters upon which we work, live and sustain ourselves. I acknowledge that this land was never ceded and that the Tasmanian Aboriginal people are its continuing custodians. I also pay my respects to elders past and present. I'd also like to add that our organisation welcomes, supports and includes carers who identify as LGBTIQ+, carers with disabilities or carers who are from culturally or linguistically diverse backgrounds. We really value and respect the diversity of carers, their lived and living experiences, and recognise that carers are the experts in their own lives. So to start with, I might explain who Carers Tasmania is. So as Stephanie mentioned, Carers Tasmania is the peak body representing the voices of the more than 80,000 carers who live within the state. Our role is really systemic advocacy. So we aim to influence positive changes to improve things like the health, wellbeing, resilience and financial security of carers. And we hope to ensure that caring is a shared responsibility of family, community and governments. Within Carers Tasmania, our service delivery arm is Care to Serve, and Care to Serve delivers the National Carer Gateway program here in Tasmania. So that program is where carers can access a range of supports and services, so things like counselling, information, peer support, referral to practical supports, anything that carers need. Really, you can call the team at Care to Serve and they can discuss what's going on and have a chat about what might be possible. So who are carers? So in Tasmania, we have a Carer Recognition Act that was passed this year, and that provides a definition of a carer. So when we're talking about carers, we're not talking about paid support workers. We're referring to family members and friends who provide care to another person because they need it. So carers under the Carer Recognition Act are someone who is caring for a family member or friend because they have disability, they have mental ill health, they have a chronic or life-limiting condition, they might have an alcohol or other drug dependence, they may be frail or aged, and our Act also covers people who are caring for a child in an informal kinship caring arrangement. We're actually the first state to recognise carers who are supporting someone with alcohol or other drug dependence, and we're the only state who uses the term mental ill health as opposed to mental illness, because we recognise that many people caring for someone with mental ill health, the person they're supporting might not have a formal diagnosis, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not providing that care. I'll jump to a few quick statistics about carers in Tasmania. So nationwide, there's an estimated 2.65 million carers, but in Tasmania, there's more than 80,000. The Tasmanian actually has a higher ratio of carers compared to the rest of Australia. So statistics show that nationally 1 in 8 people are carers, whereas in Tasmania, 1 in 6 people are estimated to be a carer. This is possibly due to the high rates of chronic health issues, autism, mental ill health, children with disability, and a rapidly ageing population. So if you think about your street, the street that you live in, 1 in 6 people in that street could be a carer. They may have been a carer, or they may undertake a caring role in the near future. Could be the people that you work with, could be your friends. So I've provided some examples of who carers might be within your workplace. As I say, these are just examples, and caring is really broad. So these are just a few ideas. It could be the parent of a child with disability who often takes leave to attend their child's appointments. It could be an employee who has an elderly parent who was recently admitted to hospital and they had to take unexpected leave to support them. Could be a trainee who often gets calls during the day from their sibling because they have additional care needs. Could be a team member who's been upset as their partner's been diagnosed with a life-limiting illness. Possibly a staff member who checks in on their elderly neighbour each morning and night just to make sure that they're safe and well and that they've been eating. It might be an employee who's taken a lot of unexpected sick days recently. Or it could be the grandparent who's just taken on full-time care of their 2 grandchildren. As I said, those were just some examples, but the carer, it could also be you right now. It may have been you in the past, or it might be you in the future. So Carers Tasmania, alongside Carers Australia and the national network of state and territory carer organisations, commissioned a study to try and understand better the impact of loss of income and super on carers. So the study, it explored really the yearly loss and the lifetime loss. So the next few slides will demonstrate some of the major findings. So on average, it found that for every year that someone is a primary carer, they might lose up to $17,700 in superannuation and $39,600 in lifetime earnings. So that's for every year. It also found that on average, by the age of 67, the loss in superannuation is quite significant and in lifetime earnings. So as I said, these are just estimates. The amounts vary depending on the time that someone's been a carer for, the type of caring situation, gender, location, job type, and all of those sort of things. But yeah, these statistics are quite shocking. The most affected were found to lose up to $444,500 in super, and in lifetime earnings, $940,000. So last year, we conducted a survey for carers to provide their experiences because we wanted to understand better the impact of balancing care and employment in Tasmania. There were quite a lot of national consultations happening looking into balancing care and employment, so we wanted to understand what was happening here. What we found were that most carers, they reported that they had a disability or health concerns of their own while they were providing care to someone else. So only 42% of the people who responded to our survey were currently employed. Some had been employed, some had been out of the workforce for a long time due to their caring role, some were looking for work and were caring. Of the carers who were employed, most were working in paid employment between 36 and 40 hours per week. Most carers reported that they'd worked for the same employer for 10 years or more. And most of the carers indicated that they took time off work because the person they cared for was not okay to be left at home alone. We wanted to understand what periods of leave they took, and most carers told us that they took periods of leave of up to a week at a time. These are just some quotes from carers that they reported in our survey. So some of these are quite powerful. So I work full time to pay the bills and care for my high needs child from the moment I get home, including overnight, until the moment I leave for work. I was employed full time as a teacher while caring for my husband until his admission to a nursing home. I currently care for my daughter. Someone said I actually had to change jobs and I could no longer work full time. Another said, work has been great, however, now I'm not able to work from home anymore. Therefore, if mum and dad or myself or my child become unwell, then I can't work at my place of work. Previously, I could just make up the hours. Another carer said that they're currently working as a casual 1 to 2 days per week to top up their pension against the rising cost of living. Another person said that they hadn't taken leave as their caring role was too full on and it was never isolated to just one event. If I need to take time off during my day for any of the above issues, then I work at night time, often throughout the night, to make up for that time. It's not ideal as I'm exhausted most of the time, but I find it strikes a balance for me to maintain my personal privacy and respect from my colleagues as a reliable and valued employee. So I have a little bit of information here about legislation. So currently, there's both Commonwealth and state-based legislation that supports the rights of carers within the workforce. So these forms of legislation are particularly relevant for those employed in both state and Australian public service agencies. So those ones are the Commonwealth Carer Recognition Act from 2010 and the Tasmanian Carer Recognition Act from 2023. So those ones talk about how state service agencies and Commonwealth agencies should support and uphold the rights of carers. And then on top of that, we have the Fair Work legislation. So that promotes the rights of carers all across Australia. In addition to that, anti-discrimination legislation also provides protection for carers. So as I mentioned, the Tasmanian Carer Recognition Act, we were the last state in Australia to enact this carer recognition legislation. So this legislation includes a carer's charter, and that refers to the Tasmanian Carer Action Plan. So the charter and the action plan both specify ways in which state service agencies and the staff who work within these agencies should recognise, include and support carers. So within the Carers Charter, there's 7 items, and really it just talks about how carers should be acknowledged, recognised, how they should be consulted in relation to the development of things that are relevant to them. They should be supported to participate in the social, political, economic and cultural life of Tasmania. They should be respected for their valuable caring role, and they should be supported to access supports and services that they need. So this is the current Tasmanian Carer Action Plan. At the moment, this runs until next year, and within this plan, it sets out obligations of each state service agencies around how they can better recognise and support carers. One of the things noted in this action plan is the supporting carers in the state service toolkit. So it's wonderful to see that the Tasmanian State Service has that document, and that just outlines some of the ways that those services support carers who are employees of the state service. does need a little bit of an update due to the legislation passing, but overall it's a really positive toolkit. So within the National Employment Standards, it specifies that carers have the right to request flexible working arrangements. So both full and part-time staff can request these flexible working arrangements if they've worked for the same employer for 12 or more months, and so they have to be a parent or have responsibility for the care of a child who is of school age or under, or if they're a carer, as per the definitions in the Carer Recognition Act. Casual employees can also request flexible working arrangements if they meet one of those eligible criteria. So if they're a carer, if they've worked for the same employer regularly for at least 12 months, and if it's reasonable to expect that they'd continue to work with that employer on a regular basis. So there's been some changes around requesting flexible working arrangements. So it's now a bit more difficult for flexible working arrangements to be denied just by using the answer, no, you can't have this flexible arrangement due to reasonable business grounds. What we did hear from a lot of carers was that that was the answer that they received with no further context provided on what those reasonable business grounds were. But now there have been some updates to that legislation which does give further protections so that if carers are denied those flexible working arrangements, the employer now has to provide further reason on why they're denying it. On the Fair Work website, there's a lot of different tools and resources and templates that you can use. All requests for flexible working arrangements, they need to be in writing. They need to be clear about what's being asked for, and the reasons for the arrangements need to be specified. But it's a really helpful website. So in addition to flexible working arrangements, full-time and part-time employees are entitled to paid sick and carers leave. All employees, that includes casual employees as well, are also able to take 2 days unpaid carers leave. So sick leave can be taken due to illness, injury, or an unexpected emergency for a member of the immediate family. For staff members who have no sick or carers leave left, they can apply to take paid annual leave. And full-time and part-time employees can only take unpaid leave if all of their paid leave has been exhausted. So there's also other protections in place if longer periods of time are required, but there's a lot more information on the Fair Work website. So you might be thinking, so why should we support carers within our workplace? If carers are going to be needing time off to care for their family and friends, what are the benefits of keeping them here? So I've outlined some of the major reasons why here. So by providing carers with adequate support, you'll likely receive a reduced employee turnover. So I mentioned before that most carers stated that they'd worked with the same employer for 10 years or more, and those carers were obviously carers who'd found really supportive and flexible workplaces. Carers will feel more supported, resulting in happier employees who are more engaged and more productive. By providing flexibility when it's needed, carers might be able to plan and manage everything better, leading to a reduction in burnout. Carers often have great skills such as empathy, problem solving, coping with stressful situations, dealing with really complex issues, and good communication skills. And because they're pivotal in supporting others, it doesn't mean that they're not able to be there at the workplace. They have the right to support their family and members and friends, but also to be safe and supported at work. So in our survey, we asked carers what some of the non-financial benefits of working were. So some of the things that they said were to be able to mix with people outside of the caring role. It gave them a sense of friendship and purpose. One carer said, "I love my work." Another said job satisfaction, contributing to a workplace, confidence, skills training, interpersonal relationships with colleagues. And another person said, "It gives me a break from the emotional aspects of caring. I feel like I'm contributing. It gives me a sense of purpose and self-worth." And another person said, "It gives me social self-esteem, independence, self-confidence, routine, a way to get outside of the home into the real world." We also ask carers, so what skills from your caring role do you think are relevant to the workplace? Again, these are some of the things that carers told us. So, really important things like time management, advocacy, good communication skills, empathy, dealing with people and case management, um, patience, functioning well under pressure, thinking creatively, sorry. Another person said, "I work with children with disabilities and my experience with my daughter has assisted me in my role greatly." Advocacy, problem solving, as I've mentioned a couple of times, empathy, continuous quality improvement. I think you can see just from this small list here that there are many, many skills that carers can bring to the workplace. So, how can you support carers within your workplace? So workplaces can raise awareness and recognition of carers within the workplace. You could develop and support a carer-friendly workplace at all levels. So having open and safe conversations is the key. You could ask carers within your workplace what they need to support them to manage their caring role in their work. So some people might benefit from access to things like employee assistance programs and counselling. Some people might need a referral to a carer support service. As I mentioned before, Care to Serve provide the Carer Gateway service, so they can help organise things like respite, counselling, practical support. Some people might just need permission to take caring related phone calls if the calls aren't too disruptive to others and to their work. Policies and procedures obviously would need to be updated to reflect any of these changes. But you could also promote flexible working arrangements where appropriate, such as working from home or flexibility in start and finish times, and just making sure that people know that they do have the right to take carers leave if they're a carer. And really importantly is to just be respectful and don't give people advice, and to keep things that are mentioned to you confidential. So we asked carers what they felt that they needed in a workplace. So there were things like having more flexibility, access to more carers leave, and that carers leave be paid. People strongly wanted assistance to keep updated with their qualifications and support to study. Training, employer understanding on why you've had to have time out of the workforce. As I mentioned before, carers said also that they bring a lot of empathy to everything that they do. But one of the big hopes that carers often tell us is for them to receive empathy in return. So down the bottom, we've got one quote that says, "Empathy for the experience outside of the workplace, with clarity for how the employer can or will support their staff. I think when this is explicit and upfront and referred to often, it creates a culture where carers leave is as acceptable as annual leave, so people feel less burdensome." And the one in the blue really stood out to me. A carer said, "I need to be able to work from home, so I'm there to monitor the person that I care for. I need the opportunity to accrue flex time or toil to cover bad mornings or doctor's appointments. I need understanding and the flexibility to be put into a role where I can be late to work and be allowed to make up the time at the end of the day. And really importantly, they said, I need to feel as if I'm trusted, not as if I'm being monitored." There's some really helpful resources available. As I mentioned, Fair Work is a great website, but Carers Victoria and Carers New South Wales have some really good carer-friendly workplace resources. They're quite simple, quite straightforward, so I really encourage you to have a look at their resources. And these are just my contact details in case anyone does want to get in touch later. I'm always happy to chat, answer any questions, or talk through any scenarios. But that pretty much brings me to the end of my presentation. So I just wanted to say thanks again to everyone, and thanks, Stephanie, for having me. But I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie, for your presentation today. So, Julie Ryan is from Carers Tasmania, and her presentation has been supporting Tasmanian carers within the workplace. So, if anyone does have any questions for Julie, please use the questions window in your control panel to type and submit those questions for Julie today. And today's presentation has been part of WorkSafe Tasmania Month. WorkSafe Month runs throughout October. Please head to worksafe.tas.gov.au to find out what other events we have running this month. No questions are coming through at the moment. Julie, are there any final key messages or lasting key messages that you'd like to provide the audience?
Thanks, Stephanie. One thing that I would like to mention is next week is National Carers Week. So it's a really fitting time just to have a think about the people within your workplace, or as I said before, in your street, your friends, anyone that you might know who might be carers, and just to consider, if there's something that you could do to help them feel a bit more supported.
Thank you. And with that, I'll begin to wrap up today's webinar. So thank you again to our presenter, today, Julie Ryan from Carers Tasmania, for her presentation supporting Tasmanian carers within the workplace. Today's presentation has been recorded and will be made available on WorkSafe Tasmania's YouTube page at the end of the month. Oops. Sorry, my apologies. Please also head to worksafe.tas.gov.au to see what other events we have running during WorkSafe Month. WorkSafe Tasmania Month is an initiative funded by the WorkCover Tasmania Board. So thank you to our presenter, and thank you to everyone for attending.